We're extremely fortunate to have Allan Kelly with us this evening. With everything that's going on in the world right now, Allan has had to become a bit of a Zoom master, so he's an ideal candidate for our first fully remote session. Allan is an extremely knowledgeable and experienced Agile coach, trainer, conference speaker, consultant, and many other things. He's got many talks up his sleeve, and this one focuses on the product owner role and how difficult it is to fulfill well. In some ways, I'm surprised we've waited till now, after 4 years, but I am very pleased and excited to introduce you to Allan Kelly.
Thank you very much. Now, I do a screen share, don't I? I may be a Zoom master, but while we've been setting this up, I've been playing around with the options, and I've found a way of being able to see PowerPoint and it not dominating my screen. Can you all see that? Everything okay?
Yes.
Yeah, can we be fine, Alan?
Good, good. So you're kind of lucky here. You're the second group to get this talk. How many of you are product owners? How many product owners have we got here? Where's my participants list gone? I've lost my participants list. There it is. Hands up if you are a product owner. Okay, not a majority by any means, but more than a few. So my second question is, does anybody here work with a product owner who they think is really excellent? That, you know, if you found yourself working at a new place in a couple of months' time, you'd be saying, I wish we could take that product owner with us. Who knows a really, or works with a really excellent product owner? Yeah, still got a few hands up, slightly fewer than before. There's a couple of thumbs up coming as well. Okay, that I find really heartening. And when I did this presentation in Malmo, I was kind of prepared for there to be no hands that went up. But you know, a couple of dozen hands went up. And I thought, maybe in Sweden they're more understanding of the product owner role. Maybe it's the UK, and maybe what I'm learning from this is that there are excellent product owners out there, but there's more not excellent product owners. There's still a long way for us to go in learning as to what makes a good product owner and how we make product owners as good as they can be. So that's really interesting to know from all of you. I've tried not to fiddle with Windows. So as I said before, I have this suspicion that we're not setting the product owner role up well. We're not putting product owners in a good place. And my hypothesis, it basically comes down to this. The product owner is, in my mind, there is no doubt the product owner is the most important role. You know, we love that mantra of, you know, build the right thing and then build it right. And you know, if you buy into that, and there's arguments for and against it, the product owner, it rests on their shoulders. It is the product owners, she or he, who has got to decide what is the right thing, who has to direct the team. There's one person who has that responsibility. Actually, a lot of responsibility on that person. Without a doubt, it's the most important role. Typically, there's one product owner. You typically have multiple developers, maybe multiple testers. Yes, there's one Scrum Master, but you know, at the end of the day, if your Scrum Master disappears for 6 months, you'll probably be okay. You won't be as good as you could be, but you'll be okay. If your product owner just disappears, that's time to really get worrying. So the product owner is the most important role. And Scrum puts an awful lot on this product owner's shoulders. I'll quote the Scrum Guide to you in a moment, but we look for one person. And there's a good reason why we look for one person. We really want one voice speaking to the team. We don't want 3 or 4 product owners in a team all trying to pull the developers and testers in different directions. We want one voice for the team. We don't want a lot of people telling a smaller number of people what to do. So it makes sense to have one person, but it still ends up being an awful lot for one person. Organizations, in my experience, ask a lot of their product owners. I sometimes feel as if Agile's been a bit like a neutron bomb. Agile comes along and it actually obliterates the management class. You know, if you buy into self-organizing teams and no managers, You find organizations which have suddenly, they've fired managers or they've moved them elsewhere. They've demanagerized technology. And even if they haven't removed managers entirely, they've reduced the number of managers. And reducing the number of managers doesn't necessarily reduce the amount of management work to do. As far as I'm concerned, there is work which is not coding and is not testing and is not perhaps scrum mastering or product ownership, and it's kind of a bit nebulous, and it goes by the name of management. It's a whole hodgepodge of other stuff, and that itself is a skill in its own right. And so often organizations rip out the management classes without really thinking about who will do this management work. Because if it all lands on the shoulders of developers and testers, they're not particularly interested in doing it, and they don't necessarily have the skills. So going back to product owners, you see these organizations where they've removed swathes of management, and you go to a team, and it's like the last manager standing is the product owner. And other than the product owner is what I call a non-commissioned manager, a bit like, in the army, you have non-commissioned officers and commissioned officers, and the product owner is like, it's a type of management role, but it's just not got manager in the title. It's not seen as a management role. But if you come to a team that's lost managers, the product owner, and to some degree the scrum master, they're like the last person standing. They're the last manager type person. And you see organizations which don't really know how to work with fewer managers, and they grab hold of the product owner and just treat them like a manager. And these organizations load work onto the product owner. Organization I was working with last year, they were nominally adopting the Spotify model. We won't talk about the Spotify model, that's another conversation. But in removing all the managers, they still had a lot of management work, and it just all ended up on the product owner's plate as well. So the organizations ask a lot of product owners. And then I don't think our organizations necessarily support our product owners in the way we should be supporting them. And I'll say some more about that when I get to talking about product owner skills and things. But you put all this together, and it just feels to me as if so often we ask so much for our product owners, but we're not giving them the best chance of succeeding. We're making their lives difficult. That's the thesis. A lot of this came out last year. Many of you will come across my little book of user stories, which is my best-selling book. Last year I published this book, The Art of Agile Product Ownership. And it's in writing this book that I really got to grapple with the product owner role. And a lot of these thoughts came out of this. And so there's some agonizing in the book about that. I always think when you get a book, the person who learns most from a book is the person who writes it. They learn so much about the topic by writing it, and that's where this came from. So moving on, as I said, Scrum, which is where the product owner title comes from, Scrum is really clear in the Scrum guide. And this is a quote from the Scrum guide a couple of years ago. I don't think it's changed massively. One person responsible for managing and controlling the backlog. The person, blah, blah, blah. The person is one person, not a committee. Only one person. In one paragraph in the Scrum guide, 3 times it says there's one person. And there's a good reason for saying one person. Before we had Scrum and Agile and all of that, it wasn't unusual to find organizations where nobody was responsible for really deciding what the team did. But lots of people had a finger in this pie and try and pull them in different directions. And teams would sit there and they'd hear different people arguing about what they wanted. So Scrum imposing a product owner role is an attempt to sidestep that. Scrum is trying to say, look, we're going to consolidate that ultimate decision authority in one person, which is good, but it creates some other problems because it asks so much, it puts so much work onto the product owner. And then look elsewhere in the Scrum guide, it says the Scrum team consists of product owner, development team, Scrum master. Teams are self-organizing and cross-functional. Self-organizing teams accomplish their work rather than, they choose how to best accomplish their work rather than being directed. So we've got this team, and the team have a lot of authority, the team have a lot of power, but they're responsible, they're equals. It doesn't actually say equals in the Scrum guide, but it's kind of inferred, and it's the way people deal with it. But we then have one person who can tell the rest of the team what to do. And the more I look at this, the more I can't help thinking there's a conflict here. On the one hand, Scrum is saying the team, and I agree with it, the team is so important. We're gonna give the team authority. We're gonna push power down to the team. The team are gonna decide how to do this. And then on the other hand, we say, but hang on, there's one person who can tell the team what to do. There's one person who decides what the team does. And although it's clear in my own mind that the product owner is about what we're building, and the team are deciding how they're going to build and how they're going to organize themselves, there's still a capacity for conflict there. And I've seen situations where, and perhaps once upon a time I was, one of the developers believes that they know what is best for the product. And it may be they feel that they know what's best for the product because they've actually met customers, or quite possibly they feel as if they know what's best for the product because they know the code base and they feel what the product's trying to do and they want to, the code is speaking to them. But can we just at least acknowledge there that there's a potential conflict there? There's a team of equals, but then there's one person who is more than equal. So again, problems with the Scrum role. Now to step back a moment and say, well, what does the product owner role really do? And all the project managers and ex-project managers on this call will be very happy to see me put up a triangle. So naturally, we're going to label the triangle features, time, and cost. That's the classic labeling, isn't it? In our industry, though, in software development, what is the cost? I know you occasionally buy new machines. I know you pay for software licenses. I know you spend a lot of time on buying video cameras and Zoom licenses now, but overwhelmingly when you're developing cost, time is you. Time is your salaries, your wages, your fees. Cost in software development is overwhelmingly the number of people you have multiplied by the time you have. The more people you have, the more expensive you are. The more time you take, the more expensive you are. Cost is actually a function of people and time. So I prefer to label that third side people, because you can infer cost. If you know what people is and you know what time is, you can work out what the cost is. And the parameters you're playing with are usually people and time. And herein lies, for me, if the single biggest difference between agile working and traditional working, if you want to boil it down to one single difference, it's this. On a traditional piece of work, which was usually a project, we wrote a features, a requirements document, a specification or something or other in the beginning. And that was where we started. And we held that constant. And we took that document and we estimated time. And armed with that document and the time, we then went and calculated costs. And then we started doing it. And for most of the time, the what are we building, the features, the functionality, what I sometimes call the demand side, that we held fixed. The objective was to deliver all of this in this time for this much money. And as we got late, and we inevitably get late, we could bend through some contingency, and then we could beg for some more time. And begging for more time implied we're begging for more money, because if we don't get any more money, we can't afford to have more time. And maybe we got some more people. In a traditional project, we regarded the functionality, the demand side, the features as fixed. And we flexed time, and we flexed cost, and we flexed people until there came a date where we could no longer get more money. We could no longer get more time. We could no longer get more people. And when that day came, we negotiated on features. And I'd like to hear from anyone who's ever worked on a non-trivial development project, which at the end of the day did not flex and negotiate on features. I don't believe anything's ever existed. I know of a few what I would consider trivial cases, but I don't think anything significant has ever delivered all the features they said they were going to deliver on day one. That's traditional working. Agile working, we regard time as fixed. 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. Maybe you do a quarterly release. Maybe you roll, you do have cycles, but there may always be more time, but we have a 2 week, 2 week, 2 week period. And the people, we have the people we have right now. If we're doing 2 weeks, you're unlikely to add anyone to the team. You might lose somebody. You're not going to add somebody. And you know the cost for the next 2 weeks. In Agile, cost, people, time is fixed. Features is flexible. Features are negotiated on day 1, on day 15, on day 29, and every 2 weeks you negotiate features. And that is the fundamental difference for me. And when we talk about the features, negotiating on features and the trade-offs around features, we are talking about the product owner. The product owner is all about that stuff. What are we building? What are we building next? What are we going to build after next? And the product owner is always having to look at where we are, what the priorities are, where the value is, what we're capable of doing, and they are making that call every 2 weeks. And in order to be able to make that call, they need to do a lot of homework. They need to be seeing customers, talking to stakeholders, analyzing what's being asked for, etc., etc., etc. The product owner is all about the what. What are we building? Software development is really quite simple. Requirements go in, working software comes out. There's a handle on the side we should be able to crank. Requirements go in, whether they're user stories, use cases, slices off a big requirements document. We put that in, we want something, and software comes out. That deciding what goes in, what are those requirements going in? And for many years, when I talk about product owners, I said a product owner is usually, not always, but usually one of 3 types of people. They are quite often a subject matter expert. They are somebody who really understands this domain, really understands the problem. They may have been there. I've got a client who works with oil companies, and they've got subject matter experts who, they've been out on oil rigs, they've been out on oil ships, they know about laying pipelines, they know about drilling holes, and they all work with software teams. I've worked in banking environments where the subject matter experts are former traders and they're feeding information to them, or they're the famous quants. People who really understand the domain. And subject matter experts as product owners can be really, really valuable because they really understand what the software needs to do. They really understand the problem. They can also be problematic because they are steeped in the as is. They don't necessarily think about changing it. They want a better as is. The second type of person you often find being a product owner, and these are business analysts. Now, some people would say business analysts are usually proxies for product owners, and that's fair enough. In some ways, a business analyst is a trained professional proxy. These are people who are saying, within this organization, we're building software for a defined set of customers, usually an organization. What is it they want to improve their business? And the business analyst is trained in analyzing businesses and understanding priorities and liaising with stakeholders and making priority calls and all the rest of it. So business analysts are often asked to play the product owner role. If they're not, they often support product owners. The third type of person you find playing a product owner, so whereas business analysts are used in a corporate IT environment, in the software vendor type environment, Microsofts and Adobe's, you find a product manager. And product managers are very similar to business analysts. They're close cousins. Both roles are concerned with what should the software do to add value. But whereas a business analyst is typically analyzing inside the business, the product owner is looking at customers outside the business. For a product owner, their customers are not in the room, they are outside this organization. And a product owner is saying, what will sell in the market? What will the people who are our customers or who we want to be customers, what will they pay good money for? What will be better for them? So product owner skills, business analysis, subject matter expert skills, they're all in the mix. And once upon a time, I used to say, the product owner is typically one of these three people. And I think something has changed in the last few years. It's no longer that case. Once upon a time, they were a subject matter expert, an analyst, a manager, or some other specialist. Today, partly the market has decided. The product owner is all of these things. The product owner has to know about their subject matter expertise. They have to understand the kind of domain. They also need to be partly a business analyst, because these days, systems kind of span the inside and outside of organizations. Changes which customers will see need to be supported inside the organization. Can we do software as a service? And changes that we make to our internal software will be exposed to customers. You think of the banking industry. Yeah, until online banking arrived, when did a bank's customer ever see the technology produced by a bank? Just didn't happen. Yeah. Now, most of us interact with our banks over the web or over our phones, and we may choose our bank depending on their smartphone app. The product owner role needs to be a superset of all these roles. Different product owners will need different emphases in different places. Some product owners, consider the product owner in a bank, they may well still need to have a very, very firm understanding of business analysis. They may be 60% a business analyst, but they also need to have some good knowledge as a subject matter expert. They need to have an awareness of the products and the customers. And equally, product managers need to understand internal processes. Subject matter experts, likewise, that can be a really difficult one, where you've got someone who's a real expert in their domain, but they don't necessarily have the knowledge about customers and the market. They understand the problem, but they don't understand different customers. So product owners need to have a mix of all these skills. And I say that every product owner needs four things. At a very base level, product owners need to have skills. Specifically, they need to have the skills to do the job of product ownership. There's a lot more skills they need, and I'm going to say a bit more about that shortly. Product owner skills are necessary, but they're not enough alone. The second thing a product owner needs is authority. And when I say authority, I really mean authority from the organization. The organization that's employing the product owner and the team, they have to let the product owner have the authority, so that when the product owner walks into the planning meeting every 2 weeks and they say, these are the stories we want, the team does those stories. And the team are not going to find that somebody else is walking up to them the next day and saying, ignore what the product owner says, I'm his boss, I'm going to tell you what to do. Product owners need authority to make the call on what's going to be built, and they don't need to be second guessed. The third thing the product owner needs is legitimacy, and legitimacy is different from just simple authority. Legitimacy means that the members of the team and their peers see the product owner as the right person, the legitimate person to be making these calls. Go back to what I was saying before about the potential conflict between a team and the product owner. If a team do not see a product owner as a legitimate product owner, and I've seen this happen where product owners are, sort of parachuted into a team. There's a team and they're given a new product owner who doesn't have a past relationship with the team. The team don't necessarily see the product owner as legitimate. They don't necessarily trust them. And the team are questioning the product owner's decisions. And the team may be trying to lead the product owner in certain directions of their own. And equally, if the organization doesn't see the product owner as legitimate, if people are sniping behind their backs, then they're going to find it difficult to do their work. The fourth thing, and this is the most difficult thing for a product owner to get, and again, I'll say some more about this one, is time. Time to be with the team, time to attend Scrum meetings, time to do the homework, time to meet customers, time to do the analysis, time to crunch the numbers, look at the support calls, do the analysis, whatever it is. And all of us, you, me, Boris Johnson, the CEO of your companies, we all share one thing in common. We all have 24 hours in a day. We cannot magic up more time. We all have the same amount of time to do work. We ask so much of our product owners, and they have to fit it into 24 hours, same as you and me. Let me say a bit more about skills and time. When it comes to skills, product owner skills, specific, I don't mean to pick on Scrum. If Kanban or XP spelled out the role in similar depth, I'd pick on them, but Scrum introduced the term, so we'll go with Scrum. The skills Scrum talks about for a product owner are only the start. If you go and look at product owner courses, you find that the product owner courses teach things like Scrum Agile principles, epics and stories, defining a backlog, writing user stories, prioritizing user stories, estimation, planning a project if you're using projects. They're the kind of skills you get taught on a product owner course. And yes, they're all necessary, but they're not enough. The big thing that's missing there is, how do you know what is wanted? As a product owner, how do you know what to write in your user stories? Knowing how to prioritize a user story is one thing, but knowing which user story to put above the other can only come if you've done your homework, you've been out, you've met customers, you've analyzed it, you've talked to stakeholders, and a million and one other things. And I apologize, I've just seen that I've misspelled stories in one of those. Hey, I'm dyslexic, I don't hide it. I'll correct it afterwards. So product owners need to know what's wanted. And look at the product owner course. It doesn't include any of that. There's more to this than just going on a product owner course. So how do you know what is needed? Well, you do your homework. You need skills of the subject matter expert, understanding the domain, understanding the technology, understanding the problems. You need skills of a business analyst to be able to identify stakeholders, talk to stakeholders, mine out of them what it is they want, and the skills of a product manager. You need to be able to go out there and you need to be able to meet customers. You need to identify who the customers should be. You then need to meet them. You need to be able to question them. And you need to be able to find out what they need without putting words in their mouth. So Scrum product owner skills, we need some product management skills in addition. We need business analyst skills as well. We need subject matter expertise. You also are going to need some project type skills, although I'm just going to say down here that a product owner is not a project manager. And this is another mistake I see in organizations who come along and they neutron bomb all the managers and they just transform with a flick of a pen a project manager into a product owner. They're fundamentally different roles. Project managers are trained to think about the when, they're trained to think about costs, they're trained to think about scheduling, they're trained to think about lots of good things. But they're more or less trained, and I speak as somebody who once upon a time had a Prince 2 certification. They are trained to deliver a given brief. A product owner is all about what should that brief be. So a product owner is not a project manager. A product owner does need some project management, delivery management skills. But if your product owners are simply looking at schedules and moving stories around to make sure they get delivered by dates, then they're just backlog administrators. All they're doing is weeding the backlog and ordering things for the best. It's not real product ownership. So I'm going to put delivery management skills on there. And as some of you no doubt are aware, I'm allergic to the word project. I'm one of the founders of the No Projects movement. So we'll delivery manager or project manager or whatever else it is you've got there. But they're not the only skills you need. There's a train of thought that says the product owner is the entrepreneur of the product. And every product owner needs to be a bit entrepreneurial. And I say, well, that's good. I want to see the product owner there evangelizing the product and imagining how it should be and being passionate about it. And I wonder which entrepreneur is our role model. Is it Richard Branson? Probably the favorite entrepreneur in the UK. Great, he's going to mortgage his island to save the airline. Would that be a good role model for your product owner, Richard Branson? Lives in tax haven. Or is it Elon Musk? A man who has a strange relationship with dates. If you look at the history of Tesla and SpaceX, they have a habit of missing delivery deadlines, which, he's great at enthusing people and selling his product, not so good with dates. Is Elon Musk the role model for your product owner? Or perhaps the world's most successful entrepreneur, Donald Trump. Is Donald Trump the kind of role model you want? Okay, you don't have to answer that question. There are attributes to entrepreneurs which we don't necessarily want with our product owners. Entrepreneurs are often successful because they won't take no for an answer. Entrepreneurs are often successful because they get people to go to extreme lengths. That's not always what you want in your team. So I agree we need some element of entrepreneurship with product owners, but just let's be clear about what we do want and what we don't want. So skills of an entrepreneur. We're also going to need some skills of business, marketing. Product owners need to understand, what is it the business is going to get out of this? What is the market? And always remember that the plural of customer is market. It's not about delivering for one customer, it's about delivering for a market. And that perhaps is another difference between BAs and product managers. In the business analysts are typically working on a thing that will be delivered to one customer, probably their employer. Product managers are seeking to create a product which sells in the market and sells to many customers. And there's quite a difference there. We could probably add some other things there. We could add interpersonal skills, snoozing people, facilitating conversations. I just said facilitation. And I'm sure if you think about it, there's probably some other skills you'd like your product owner to have. Some are specific to your domain or some I've just not thought of here. So product owner skills, the skills to do a product owner role well, yes, they include all the skills you learn on a Scrum product owner course, but there are so much more to this role. And how many of our product owners get that training, have that experience, have an opportunity to learn all those things? I hope they do. Most of them I meet are, well, to be blunt, lacking in one thing or another. I think to some degree we're looking for our product owners to be superhuman. They need to be a superhero. They need to have all these skills. And I say, is this too much to expect from one person? Do our companies support them and train them? Do we pay more for them? If we need so many skills in a product owner, surely they come at a premium price. And where do we find these superhero product owners? If we need a product owner to do all these things, where do we find them? So are we asking too much of them? Are we setting them up to fail? The other thing I said before was product owners need time, and we all have the same amount of time in our lives. So a product owner needs time to, whoops, where was I? Oh, hang on. My slides are, talk to customers. So I've been a product owner. I've actually been a product manager. And when I was a product manager, I went to see my customers sometimes. And on one occasion, I went to Helsinki to see a customer. Getting to Helsinki when the planes are working may only be a 2-hour flight, but it's a flight you've got to take the day before the meeting. You stay in a hotel, you meet the customer, and then you fly back. You lose 2 days out of your life for a 2-hour meeting. And when the customer is further afield, I had one in Chicago. That's 3 days out of your life for a 2 or 3 hour meeting. That is difficult to justify, but what you learn in those meetings can be gold dust. I learned things about what my product shouldn't be doing. I could have gone to those meetings and they could have been utter waste of time, but I could have gone to similar meetings with other people and they could have been gold dust. Product owners need time to meet customers or meet stakeholders, to understand their needs, to understand what is valuable to them, to understand what they should be building. If a product owner is not engaging with customers, how do they know that? They need to talk to users. So there's customers who buy the product and there's users who use it. We're on Skype tonight. I am a customer of Skype. I know lots of people recently who are users of Skype, but they never pay Skype. So typically there's more users, not Skype, Zoom. Typically there's more users than customers. You need to understand stakeholders, their requests. You need to attend stand-up meetings with the team, planning meetings, retrospectives. And now the stuff we mentioned before, writing user stories, breaking down user stories, refining user stories, setting acceptance criteria, working on code and testers sometimes. Sometimes the right thing to do as a product owner is to sit with a coder or a tester and work through an issue. Product owners are looking at the business case. They're refining the business case. They're also out understanding the market. They're forecasting completion dates a lot of the time. They're reporting upwards to more senior people and to their peers who may need to coordinate with them. This list could go on and on and on, and it all requires time. And product owners are people too. I know at the moment we may be spending a little bit too much time with our families, but during normal times, we need to get time with our families. This is not my family, by the way. This is a clip art picture. My family aren't so. Product owners are people too, and they need to have time to switch off and relax and be with their families. If we max them out, they'll burn out. So product owners need help. How are we going to get them that help? Well, the skills bit is the easy bit. We just need to pony up the money, spend the money, make the time, buy the training. That's relatively easy. Of course, training doesn't guarantee you've got a skill, but it's a good place to start. So I find it very frustrating when organizations don't find the money to send product owners on training courses. Time is a far harder fix. So product owners have got to find time in their life. So one thing to do is for product owners to stop doing some things. So product owners should stop coding. I feel as though I shouldn't have to say this, but I do come across a lot of product owners who've still got a hand in the code. And there's two reasons for doing this. One is purely the time. If you are a product owner who still codes a bit and you have a spare hour, what is the most productive use of that hour? Is it to get into the code and try and fix something? Or is it to spend the hour improving your understanding of what customers want so that when you are asking for things next time, you're asking for things of higher value? A product owner has a skill set that most developers don't have. You typically have one product owner to 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 developers. The product owner, if they've got a spare hour, should spend their time on what are we building, what delivers the greatest value, which stakeholders should we be talking to, etc., etc. The second reason why product owners need to stop coding is they need to empathize with the customers and the users, not with the code. If you keep coding, you find you get pulled in different directions. As much as I love code, I'm still really a coder at heart. If you get too close to the code saying, refactor me, rebuild me, change this module, whether a customer wants it or not. It's difficult enough to have that argument when you've got one person representing the customer and one person representing the code, but at least you can have that conversation. If one person's got both of that inside their head, you're asking for problems. You can't have a conversation. To product owners, please stop coding. You've got better things to do with your time. Product owners need to stop line managing teams as well. Product owners are about the product, the features. The people who are building it are another matter. They are however your organization organizes it. This typically occurs where organizations neutron bomb the management classes and the product owner is the last person left standing. Product owners If the UX is important, you need to hire a UX designer. And if it's not important, leave it to the developers. But so often the product owner, and this is particularly true of business analysts as well, the product owner ends up being the UX designer because there is nobody designated as a UX designer. So they just pick up that one as well. If the UX is important, get a professional. If it's not important, leave it to the team. Stop writing documents. They don't work anyway. They're a waste of time, and things change before you get there. If you need to document something, document it after it's been built, so you're documenting the thing that actually is. Some ways you can find some time in your busy lives. You can get help in. So product marketing is another job. This is typical, you see as product managers, particularly in startups. In the product management is a marketing job, but it's inbound marketing. It's about understanding what customers and the market want. Product marketing is about telling people you have a product that is there. It's about advertising, public relations, and all of that. In a startup, it's quite typical for those roles to rest in one person, a product manager. As an organization grows, they need to be distinct jobs. Product manager is what should we build? Product marketing is here's a product we want you to buy. Hire a UX designer. I just said all that. Hire pre-sales consultants. Another problem you often see more with product managers who are product owners and BAs is they end up having to go out and do demonstrations to potential customers. They end up having to support pre-sales demos and things like that. Okay, it makes sense for them to be involved a bit, but really, if you're doing more than one a month of those things, you should be hiring a pre-sales consultant to specialize in it. Get rid of some of that line management stuff you picked up. Lean on the product manager or the development manager or your scrum master. You want to get management responsibility away from the product owner. They're about the product. They can manage the product. They shouldn't be trying to manage the team. And use the team. Yes, the team are experts in coding and testing, but you can lean on them. They can help you with some of your customer visits. They can help you explore what needs to be done. They can do some of the work for you. Not all of them are, some of them are better than others, but you can use the team to think about what you're going to build to. And this is the big one. You can refactor the product owner role. And this typically happens as teams get larger. Although we want one product owner who speaks with one voice, we can think about having two product owners. It doesn't matter what titles you have. I use the titles strategic product owner and tactical product owner. I see this in a lot of companies, but they don't use these titles. They're using some other titles, but same model. Strategic product owners are focused on meeting customers. They work less with the customers, but they spend more time, they work less with the team, but they spend more time with customers. They're thinking about the long term. They're thinking about the product. They're thinking about the business strategy. The tactical product owner spends more time with the team, less time with customers. They're thinking near term, this sprint, the next release, the next couple of sprints. Ideally, the two product owners can deputize for each other. If one is off on holiday, the other one can step in. And if that one goes sick, the first one can step in. And importantly, they speak with one voice. If we let a situation happen where these people are pursuing different goals, don't see the world in the same way, then the old problem of having the team pulled in different directions emerges. We want one voice, so these people need to live in each other's pockets. Another good reason why they should deputize for each other once in a while. So we can refactor it. It doesn't make sense usually to do that with a small team because there just isn't enough people. But when you start to get a larger team, 7, 8, 9 developers and testers, then it's time to think about that. And finally, as a product owner, don't let yourself be a dog's body. Don't go around picking up all that other work. Don't go updating the burn down shots. Anybody else can do that. Don't go around filing the reports you don't need to file. Don't go around doing testing when the tester's off. Don't be a dog's body and pick up stuff that's left over. Poof, the end. I think I'm more or less on time. A few minutes over, maybe. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Alan, for that. That was really insightful. If people want to unmute to themselves and show their appreciation, now is a good time to do it.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Alan.
We need to work out the Zoom protocol on that.
Yeah.
Well, we've got the Q&A session. And there are lots of questions. The first question, and Alan, you might want to present your slides for the questions in case you need to refer back to any of them.
Yeah.
So I'll stop presenting at this point. The first question, this is from Tristan Bray. How many products can a product owner own well?
I think the default answer is 1. The subtlety is, do the products have the same customer user base? When you go to see users or customers, are you going to different customers and users, or are you going to the same group of customers and users? Because as hopefully it's obvious, if you go and talk to one customer and you can get their use and understanding and needs of 2 products, then that's a very effective use of time. But if the customers who use the products tend to be a different customer base, you've just got twice as much work to do. So that's the key thing. I suppose if they're 2 small products, if you've got teams of just 2 or 3 people on each product, and you've got relatively small user bases, you might get away with 2. But I think once you get a team of 5 or 6 devs and testers, and once you've got more than a handful of customers, I'd rather you put your time and energy into 1 product. As a general rule of thumb, I say 1 product owner per team, and 1 team says 1 product. And teams are, I know the old adage of 7 ± 2, but where product owners are concerned, I say 1 product owner for a team of between 3 and 7 people. If the product is new, the market is fast moving, there's a lot of customers, a lot to keep up with, then 1 to 3. And if the developers don't know much about the product, if the domain's new to them. On the other hand, if you've got a stable product with a stable customer base and the developers know a lot about the product and the users, then you'll probably go away with 1 to 7.
Okay, does anyone want to chip in as a follow-up to that question? Tristan, did you want to, if you're still here? Yes, Tristan's here. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I'm thinking about the situation we're in at the moment. We've got 2 products for very similar customer bases. They're all doing the same thing. They're just, what's the differentiation is what product they've used before. There's been consolidation within the market, and different products are a different product is better for the size of the customer. But that still means that there are 2 significantly sized dev teams. In fact, 3 significantly sized dev teams to manage, both on an ERP side and an e-commerce side.
Yeah. Do the dev teams understand their products?
Yes.
Or do they okay? Because if a dev team understand the product and the dev team have experience, then you can get away with saying less to them. But if you've got a dev team who don't really understand the product, and the example I always give is years ago I worked with an airline who'd outsourced development to a company where nobody really understood how an airline worked, and the product owners needed to give a lot of information to developers.
Right. Yep. No, that's useful. We've got 2 dev teams with up to 30 years experience on them, and we've got another dev team which subcontracting. So completely the other side of
Yeah.
the scale. So
I
yeah,
think you'd be better off with 2 product owners, but if you might be able to get by with 1. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next question is from Alex Connell, and the question is: any suggestions or recommendations for product owner training?
Apart from my own, of course. So I think doing a Scrum product owner course is a firm foundation. I tend to, if you're going to do it, then have a think about how many people you will have to do it with. When I do courses, I try and keep the class size to a dozen to 20, because I like to be very interactive and a lot of questions. I know some of the well-known names in Scrum PO training. I won't name names, but I know they take classes of 40, 50, even 60. And that scares me because I can't see how you can have a lot of interaction. I think it must mainly be chalk and talk and group exercises. But you may be happy with that. So, not all Scrum product owner training is equal. Then skills on the product management side. Years ago, I did a product management course by an American company called Pragmatic Marketing. Then they're now called Pragmatic Institute. I've been responsible for sending people on their courses, so I always recommend them, and the people I've sent give me very good feedback. Business analysis side, like quite a vast market out there, and there's a lot of certifications knocking around. I have a lot of respect for a gentleman called Adrian Reed, who has a website called, well, it's adrianreed.co.uk, and he does some training programs, so I'd recommend looking at Adrian's stuff. And of course, I do stuff. It's not certified, and I typically tend to be done in-house for companies. So I have a strategic product owner course. Recently, with change in the world, I've been experimenting, and I know some other people on this call have been on an experiment I'm running with some online workshops, which is going pretty well. So I might be doing some more of that in future.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful.
Great, excellent. We've got a question from Tom. How do you avoid decision making by committee within the team and nothing getting agreed, whilst ensuring that everyone feels like they have a voice, thus are motivated?
I don't think there is a simple answer. It's you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If you don't let people have a voice, then it's going to demoralize people, but it can be very time consuming. Ultimately, I always think the product owner has the final say. And although they should listen to the team and they should respect the team, at the end of the day, sometimes you need to say, damn the torpedoes, we're going to do this. And I think usually the person with the ear of the business side, shall we say, tends to win out that debate because they've got the money. So I think it's the product owner, if not on paper, then certainly in practice. If you're the product owner in that situation, I'd encourage you to spend some one-on-one times with people. Perhaps try and find out the way they're thinking, what they're going to argue for, and rather than having big team discussions, try and have some smaller one-on-one discussions beforehand, so that you've laid the ground for decision. You've already run over some ground. The other thing you can do is sometimes you can flip a coin, literally. I somewhere around here, I used to have a dice to outside my desk. I've sometimes threatened to roll a dice, simply because there comes a point where you need to stop talking, you need to start doing. And I'm a great believer in we learn more by doing. A bit of planning, a bit of discussion is good, but very quickly we want to do. And sometimes the right way to proceed is, okay, we'll roll the dice, we'll make a decision for today, and next week, when we've done some work, we'll revisit that decision. So that's one way of doing it. Another way, if you've come across a technique called personal Kanban or lean coffee. Started life as personal Kanban, now it's usually lean coffee. and you time box discussions. You list out all the things you want to talk about. It could be all the stories for this sprint, and you allocate some time to each one, and you use the alarm on your phone to set an alarm. And when the alarm goes off, you stop and you say, look, this thing we've been talking about, do we need to talk about it some more? Do we need to reset the timer with some more time? Or do we make it move on to something else? And quite often, just be able to reflect to people and say, look, we've spent 10 minutes talking about this. Can we just make a call or decide not to do it? Is powerful, because you quite often find discussions end up running around in circles.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan.
Yeah, sorry, just to add into that one is one of the things I keep telling my testing team is that quality is in the eye of the product owner. So if you actually have an issue with a particular piece of functionality, you think it's a bug, you don't think it's a bug, go to your product owner and ask them.
Yes.
And usually it's just a quick demo. Hey, that's fine with me, let's ship that. Whereas you can go round and round the loops constantly with developers and also testers of should we fix this, should we not fix this, is this a big enough issue?
Yes.
So it is bow down to the authority.
I think as well, like, oh sorry, I was going to say, it seems as well like honing the art of like tactfully rejecting ideas is probably quite a core skill as well, I guess. So if you're going to reject it in a tactful way rather than putting people down and trying to encourage other people to come with options and ideas.
I guess the other thing to add to all that is you are not aiming to build the best product with unlimited resources. You are aiming to build the best product within your constraints, within the people you have, the time you have, the money you have, etc., etc. It's not about building the best ever. And we forget this, particularly when we get into estimation processes. And I know Tom was on this training workshop I did the other week, and I had two groups of people with the same problem. And one group asked for about $5,000 for a solution, and the other group was asking for $500,000. And we need to remember, what are the constraints? What's the value we're working in? We're building the best thing we can within those constraints.
Okay, great answer. So Craig would like to know, could you apply a product owner role to a situation where there are, say, 20 small products and different people are knowledgeable about each? So it's almost like a situation where there's a whole load collected together.
So to clarify, I'm thinking about, so let's say you've got a development team of 5 people with like 20 products. Yeah, that kind of thin spread.
Yeah. There must be a unifying theme across the products. I would hope there is one.
Yep, so they're generally like marketing analytics, but they're generally bespoke to each customer. So that, think of it like 20 implementations.
Yeah. So maybe, it's a question of allocating of the resources the team have. The team look after a portfolio of products, and the portfolio is related, and it's the trade-offs between different features and functionality which may happen to fall into different products. If there's 20 different products and 20 different customers, what I'm thinking is that's quite a workload. I think there needs to be some product ownership. Let's just get that out of the way. Somebody needs to grab a hold of the situation and say, we need to be able to say that the things that customer is asking for is more important than what that customer is asking for, even though they're different products. Somebody needs to get a hold of that. But it's going to be quite a challenge that the customers are so diffused over them. It may be a situation where you need multiple product owners, and within that strategic tactical model, you can sometimes appoint tactical product owners who look after products, or small parts of a product, and a strategic product owner tries to bring it all together. But if you've only got 5 developers, my concern would be that you're going to end up with a lot of people deciding what to do for what is a relatively small resource. Now, I can't see a good answer to that question. I can see a need, but I can't see a good answer.
Cool.
Sorry, can I? Go on, Craig.
So the last question I'm going to ask, there were more. Sorry, I couldn't get through them all. There's so many questions, and I can still see that the chat is still being populated with good, useful information. People are sharing good stuff. This is from Alex as well. Have you any advice for those in a small organization where one person is filling the strategic product manager role and also the more tactical product owner's role?
Yeah, and just to add a bit more to that, this is something that I struggle with a lot, is managing the balance between responding to the customer requirements which are shouting the loudest, which are typically, you know, sort of short term, versus the long term strategic direction which I believe the product needs to go in.
Yeah. I suppose what I'd be thinking of is that's problem not just for the product owner, but how you allocate the capacity of the team to do the work. So I'd be thinking you need to start off with some strategic decision as to how will you allocate the capacity? Is it 60-40 or 10-90 or just some idea? And traditionally, I'd think of that in terms of the development team. If you're going to say 50-50, you might effectively have 2 mini teams, or you might alternate the sprints. But your question is about the product owner. I said a product owner needs to feed that back into their own working and think about how they're allocating the time. It's not so much it's actually the middle ground that worries me more, not the strategy or the tactical stuff. I can imagine a product owner could single out a few days a month to just go off and say, right, this is my time to think strategically. I'm not going to be in the office. I'm going to switch off my electronic communications. I'm going to have those conversations. I can see you saying we can spend a couple of days each month seriously thinking strategically. And it's not even the getting mired in the detail of all the requests coming in. It's that middle ground of really trying to work out the intelligent moves on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, I'd agree that it's easy enough to treat those things as separation, but it's then moving the incremental work that is going to lead towards those strategic objectives and getting those into the sprint alongside the day-to-day. And I find that quite, you know, that's every sprint, that's always a challenge.
Yeah, so at the sprint level, I think you can just, did somebody just drop off? Something changed there. My screen moved around. I hope Alex is still on the call.
Yeah, I'm still here.
At the sprint level, I think you can think about setting yourself quotas. You know, say, look, we will only do 3 screaming customer stories as a sprint, and we'll put some strategic stuff in, and then we'll put some screaming customer stories in there. It's the limit work in progress. In Kanban, they talk about limit work in progress. They also talk in the later versions of Kanban about service quality types and saying, look, some services like the screaming customers, we'll set a separate limit for that. We'll deal with them in a sub team. We'll deal them differently, and by allocating capacity, it could be 2 mini teams, or it could be within one team setting a quota and trying to work within those quotas, that capacity allocation. That's going to give you perhaps not a perfect solution every week, but it's going to give you a guide, and that is a strategic decision. How much of our capacity, whether measured in people or time, do we want to put towards the long-term strategic stuff, and how much are we going to deal with the here and now?
Yeah, no, that's a practical solution, isn't it? But needs discipline, doesn't it?
Well,
to
yes.
enforce that.
Yeah. The other way of doing it, if you look at one of my other books is Xanpan, Xampn, and I talk in there about what I did with unplanned work, where you get customers ringing up and saying, we need you to do something now, and you just have to do it.
Yeah.
And I talk about we do that work, we accept shit happens and we do it, but we track how much that work is coming in. Whether you do estimations or just count the cards is good enough, and you get a feel for what amount of your capacity is going in those. We can't stop unplanned work, unplanned but urgent. And over time, once you got a feel for how much of that work you're getting, and you can graph it and do other things with it, you can then start to reason about it. You can then start to say, so suppose you find out that 50% of your capacity is going in screaming customers. You're then in a position to go to the powers that be and say, this is what's happening. Are you happy with that? Do you want us to push back hard on screaming customers, or conversely, should we be giving them more capacity? And if they aren't happy with that situation, what do you want to do about it? Do you want to be given more resources, or do you want to take some other action? So just tracking it and understanding where the capacity is going today without changing anything can be very educational.
Thank you. Thanks. That's good insights there. Thank you very much.
So that I'm going to draw that to a close. That was fantastic. Amazing engagement from everybody. So I'm really pleased with that. Alan, what is the book that you've given us? I know you've sent me the vouchers for.
Yes, I think I've given you. Actually, did I give a little book of user stories, or he leans across his office to grab the other one, or was it Project Myopia?
I believe it was Project Myopia.
Yeah, Myopia.
So,
okay.
Tell us a little bit about that book.
So as I mentioned in the talk, I am one of the people behind the No Projects movement, and the No Projects movement basically says that the project model of building software is we can do better than that. The world is moving. We're in this digital age, and we need to think not about stop projects, but about continually doing stuff. And Project Myopia, basically, it sets out everything that's wrong with projects. There's another book that tells you about what to do instead, because the one that tells you why the project model creates problems.
So it just remains for me to say thank you all for joining this event. Thanks for the engagement, some really good questions. Thanks to the rest of the Agile Northants team for helping to plan and execute this event. Biggest thanks obviously goes to Alan for being so generous with his time and his expertise. So thank you, Alan.
Thank you very much, Alan.
Thanks very much, Alan, again.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, cheers, Alan. Brilliant, Alan.
Cheers.
Thank you.
For the people dropping off, I'll say goodbye now. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Safe.
Thank you very much.